In 1974, a gruesome tragedy unfolded in a Dutch colonial house in Amityville, New York. Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered 6 members of his family while they slept, claiming voices made him do it. 13 months later, the Lutz family moved into the same house. George and Kathy Lutz thought they'd found their dream home, until the house began to dream back. From the very first night, the air felt heavy. Doors slammed without wind, windows opened themselves, and something unseen whispered through the walls at night. Their dog refused to enter the upstairs bedrooms. He growled at empty corners and whimpered when left alone. Sensing something the family could not see, the temperature inside would plummet suddenly, even with the heat on. Frost formed on windows, and their breath became visible inside the living room. Green slime oozed from the walls, seeping through electrical sockets and dripping from keyholes. No plumber could explain the source. A crucifix hanging on the wall rotated slowly upside down. No one touched it. It swung for hours, as if unseen hands mocked them. George Lutz woke every night at exactly 3:15 a.m., the same time the DeFeo murders had occurred. The hour became a curse. He would walk the halls in darkness, drawn by invisible footsteps echoing ahead of him. Something always stayed just out of sight. Kathy experienced cold touches on her skin while bathing. She heard a deep male voice whisper her name from behind the mirror. Their daughter, Missy, began speaking to an imaginary friend named Jody, a red-eyed pig with a human grin that appeared in her window at night. Jody told Missy secrets about the house. She claimed Jody lived there before them and would never let her leave. A priest came to bless the house. As he entered, he heard a voice snarl, "Get out," and was slapped across the face by invisible force. The priest developed a fever and blisters after visiting. Every attempt to contact the family afterward failed. His phone line only emitted static. Windows shattered inward as if from pressure within. Doors unhinged violently. No storm touched Amityville that week. The house had a room in the basement, a small hidden space behind a shelf, painted entirely red. It wasn't in the blueprints. The family dog refused to approach the red room. He barked relentlessly at the wall, digging at the floor as if something were buried beneath. George began to change. He grew pale, angry, distant, obsessed with chopping wood. He kept an axe by his side day and night. He claimed the house whispered to him, telling him the family had to be punished. He no longer recognized his own voice. Kathy had visions of a woman in white, levitating above their bed. Her face was hollow, her eyes black, her mouth open in a silent scream. Missy drew disturbing pictures, people bleeding, eyes crying green fluid, and Jody the pig standing above the house in flames. Footsteps echoed across the upstairs hallway when no one was there, heavy boots pacing rhythmically in the middle of the night. Flies swarmed the sewing room in winter. The windows were sealed, yet hundreds buzzed angrily around one single light bulb. George began to lose track of time. Hours vanished. He would stare into the fire, mumbling prayers he didn't remember learning. The fireplace roared without wood. Green flames danced inside, illuminating faces that vanished when anyone else looked. Kathy felt her body lifted during sleep. She awoke suspended inches above the mattress, paralyzed in the air. Missy said Jody told her the house was hungry. She offered her doll a sacrifice so her parents wouldn't disappear. Doors locked from the inside by themselves. Keys bent or snapped. The family was trapped in rooms they'd just entered. The staircase groaned under phantom weight. George followed the sounds only to find cold footprints leading into the wall. Photographs taken in the home showed orbs, mists, and strange shapes. One image revealed a boy's face peering from the shadows, a boy who wasn't there. Kathy's skin bore bruises shaped like fingerprints. She awoke screaming, claiming someone was holding her down each night. Cabinets slammed shut simultaneously. Plates cracked inside them. The house groaned as if it were breathing. George chopped wood obsessively in the cold. Neighbors saw him barefoot in the snow, eyes glazed, whispering to the axe. A swarm of flies appeared in the priest's car after his visit. They never left, and his vehicle remained infested for weeks. Missy's room smelled like decay. No matter how much they cleaned, the stench returned, stronger each night. The green slime oozed from walls, ceilings, even through the floorboards. It pulsed slowly, like it was alive. At night, shadows crawled along the walls. They didn't match anyone's shape. They moved even when the family stood still. George's reflection began to change. Sometimes he saw his eyes blackened, or his mouth twisted into someone else's smile. The family heard screaming from the basement, high-pitched, like a child. But when they opened the door, only silence greeted them. One night, the front door was blown off its hinges. The wind outside was still. The force came from within. Missy whispered to the walls. Her parents overheard her saying, "He doesn't like you," then laughing like someone else was with her. Lights flickered even when switched off. Cold blue sparks danced inside broken bulbs. Electricians found no faults. The attic door opened on its own every night at 3:15. They nailed it shut, it still opened. George began to sleepwalk. He stood over Kathy with the axe in hand, unaware of what he was doing. Mirrors fogged over and revealed words, "Leave now." The family wiped them clean, only for the message to return. The house smelled of sulfur at odd hours. Guests gagged and felt lightheaded. Paranormal experts called it a sign of demonic presence. Tapping sounds echoed from behind the walls. When they knocked back, the house responded louder, angrier. Bibles left open curled into themselves. The pages darkened and tore. One burst into flame without a spark. George refused to leave, claiming the house needed him. He said it whispered love and loyalty into his dreams. Kathy dreamt of the murders. She saw the bodies, felt the axe in her hand, heard the screams, woke up crying. Missy began to draw Jody with horns. "He's not a pig anymore," she said. "He's turning into what he really is." A friend of the family visited and fainted upon entering. She awoke screaming. They're watching from the walls. Objects moved on their own chairs. Silverware, even the family Bible slid across the table as if pushed by invisible hands. Kathy's cross necklace burned her skin. She removed it and saw blisters in the shape of a claw. Missy said Jody lived in the fireplace now. She heard him purring through the flames, calling her closer. Green ooze pooled at their feet. It bubbled slowly and retreated when touched, like it was aware of them. The house grew louder at night. Cracks, groans, growls, a low chorus that seemed to build into something unholy. George's face grew hollow. Neighbors said he no longer looked like the man who moved in. His eyes had turned blank. The family found hoofprints in the snow outside. They started at the window and ended at the doorstep, no beginning. Missy floated above her bed once. Kathy screamed, and the girl dropped like dead weight, silent and cold. Kathy saw herself aged in the mirror. Gray hair, hollow cheeks, yellow eyes. Her reflection stared back with a smirk. Clocks stopped at 3:15 every day. Even digital ones reset or flickered uncontrollably at that exact moment. George's voice deepened unnaturally. Sometimes, he'd speak in a language no one recognized, then claim he remembered nothing. Missy said Jody wanted a body. He was tired of being spirit and needed flesh to stay forever. Their priest returned and refused to enter. He stood on the porch, whispered a prayer, and walked away shaking. George began carving symbols into the wood. He didn't know what they meant, but he said, "The house told me to." Kathy woke with scratches across her back, long, deep, and fresh, but no one was in the room with her. Candles blew out on their own. One reignited backward, fire sinking into wax instead of rising. They heard chanting from the vents, whispered in unison, over and over, until it faded into groans. The basement door slammed shut and refused to open. For an hour, George clawed at it from the other side. Missy told her mother, "He wants you next." Then she laughed. But it wasn't her laugh. George dreamt of killing them all. He saw himself with an axe, chasing shadows through the house, begging it to stop. Footsteps echoed overhead even when the attic was empty. A second set followed after, always slower, always heavier. Kathy's hair turned white overnight. Doctors found no cause. She refused to speak of what she saw that night. They found bite marks on the stairs. Not human, not animal, large, uneven, deep into the wood. George began saying the house was a temple. "It wants worship. It deserves it," he whispered into the walls. Kathy saw Missy vanish for a moment. One blink, and she was gone. A breath later, she stood behind her silently. They discovered old newspapers under the floor, stories of past owners, all driven mad, all gone without trace. The piano played a single key every night. No one ever saw it move, but the note was always the same. Green fog filled the hallway at dawn. Breathing it in brought nightmares of drowning, screaming, and fire. George found himself outside at night, digging holes. He didn't remember leaving bed. The shovel was wet with soil. Missy claimed Jody had wings now. She said he flies through the attic and lands on her chest to whisper stories. The walls bled once, thick red streaks down the kitchen tile. They vanished when police arrived. Photographs taken after 3:15 turned black. No exposure, no explanation, only emptiness and faint whispers in the audio. One night, George stood at the edge of the bed and whispered, "It's time." Kathy slapped him awake. Missy painted Jody in flames. "He's going back soon," she said. "He's just waiting for someone to follow." They tried to burn sage. The smoke turned black, rising into the vents like it was being inhaled by the house. Their final night was the loudest. Screams, growls, furniture crashing, but no signs of damage remained by dawn. The family fled barefoot in the snow. They never looked back, leaving everything behind. They never spent another night there. Paranormal experts explored afterward. One claimed, "It's not a haunting, it's a feeding ground. The walls remember. The house remains." Others have lived there since, but none stayed long. It's quiet now, but the quiet breathes. Some say the house chooses its victims. It waits patiently, whispering to those who listen too long. Neighbors still see lights flicker at 3:15, a face in the window, a pig's red eyes behind the glass. Jody was never seen again. But sometimes, children in the neighborhood dream of him, waiting in the attic for someone new. The basement red room was sealed with concrete, but some say it cracks open when the moon is right. Kathy never spoke of what truly happened. George disappeared for a week after they moved, found in the woods, silent and shaking. Missy forgot everything. But once, years later, she whispered, "He said I'd come back," then smiled just like she used to. The house stands still, but at night, the grass bends around it as if something breathes beneath the soil. Tourists still visit. Some take photos, some feel ill. Most leave quickly, saying it feels like being watched from inside their bones. The Amityville house was never just a house. It was a wound, a whisper, a waiting mouth, and it may never close.